Hello everyone, welcome to FOC Class 11. This video is part 12 of Java for Class 11 IT Code 802. So today we are going to discuss the topic handling the radio button component. Means in today's video we will be starting with the radio button component. So let's start. First of all, the question arises why radio buttons? Means if we can use the text fields to accept the input to display the output, then why do we need these radio buttons? Let us understand through an example. Suppose instead of displaying a message, we need to display the title of the user, Mr. or Miss, along with the name input in the text box. Means now we just don't want to display a simple message. Means we do not want that every time the same message should be displayed, but we want that that message should be modified every time. And how it should be modified? The title of the user should come along with the name input in the text box. Means there will be a text box in which the user will be giving the name input, means the name of the user. So the title will be merged with that name. So how will we do this? First of all, we have to accept the title in a separate text box because we have to accept the title from the user only. So that is why we need a separate text box where the user can enter the title Mr. or Miss. And then we have to concatenate this title with the name. Means the user will give two kinds of input. First is title and second is name. So we have to concatenate both of them to display the message in the output. Now, what is the problem? The problem is that different users will have different ways of entering the title. Suppose we are having three users which will give the input. So maybe one user can enter Mr. in this way, the second user can enter Mr. in this way where the R is small, and the third user can enter the Mr. in this way where the dot is missing but the R is capital. So this is how different users will enter the input in a different way, means there will be different inputs. And for different inputs, we have to do the different coding. So this will cause problem for us because there can be many users and different users will have different ways of entering the title. So this is the problem that we are facing by this approach of creating the form. So we will find a different approach, a different solution to make this easier. So an easier approach for this problem is radio button. We can use the radio button component to accept the gender input, means the gender input that we are going to take from the user. We can use radio button for it instead of having a text field. Now what is the advantage of this? Let us see by the use of radio button. So let us start our topic, radio buttons. So what are radio buttons? Radio buttons are a group of buttons in which by convention only one button at a time can be selected to accept input from the user. Basically, radio buttons, as its name is suggesting that they are buttons, means there is not only one button but there are many buttons. So we can use this option when there are many kind of input for the user and user has to choose one of them. Because if we select any one radio button, then the other one gets deselected. Means if you have selected, for example, there are two radio buttons, male and female. If you have selected female in the beginning, but then you click on male, so the female radio button will get deselected automatically. So this is the use of radio buttons, that the user can select only one button at a time. And basically we use this to accept input from the user. So now we have understood what is radio button. So we will be designing the form which will include radio button as well as text field as well as label. So what are the components that we need to add in our form? One editable text field to accept the name. Means first of all we have to add a text field, and this text field would be editable. Means we can edit this text field, or you can say the user can give the input in this text field. That is why it is said to be editable. After it, we have to add a group of two radio buttons to accept the gender. As I just told, we will have two radio buttons, male and female. So these two will be to accept the gender of the user. Then we have to add one non-editable text field to display the name along with the title. Means here in this text field, the second text field that we are going to add, it will be set as non-editable, because here in this text field the user cannot do anything. The message or the output would be displayed here, so that is why it is set to be non-editable. And what will it display? It will display the name along with the title. Whatever name has been entered by the user in this text field which is editable, it will be displayed along with the title. And then appropriate labels to direct the user. Means we have to add the labels also, so that the user can know that what he or she has to do. So this is our form, radio.bu.java. This is our form, and here we have added our components to the form from the palette. So here we are having the three labels, two text fields and two radio buttons. Now we will change the display text. Here we have changed the display text. First label is enter name, second label is select gender, and the third label is full name of the user is. You can enter any label which will be making the user clear about what to do in this text field. So here the user can understand that he or she has to enter the name. Here he or she has to select the gender, and here the full name of the user is going to be displayed. So this is how I have given the names to the labels. You can also use different appropriate names. Afterwards, we have left both of these text fields empty, because in this text field which is editable, in this text field the name will be entered by the user, and this radio button, any one of them will be selected by the user, and in this text field the output will be displayed. Now there is one important note which you must remember. Out of several radio buttons belonging to a group, only one can be selected. As I just told, that this is the main use of radio buttons, that whenever you select any one of them, then the other one which is already selected, it will get deselected. Why? Because only one radio button can be selected at a time from a group of several radio buttons. Now, button group is an invisible component. What is button group? It is a new kind of component to you, but we will be using it for associating the radio buttons. We will understand its use in more detail. First of all, let us see that how is it an invisible component. Here in the form design, you can see that we have entered the labels, text field, radio buttons, but you can see that there is no other component. But actually, I have added a component here which is button group. And how do I know it, or how can you know that I have added it? You can see in the navigator window there is an option button group 1, button group. So this is indicating that we have added this button group component to our form, and because it is an invisible component, that is why it cannot be seen in the form. Now, why do we use the button group? We use it to associate several radio buttons. First of all, We need to understand why to associate radio buttons to same button group, as we just know that the button group is used to associate the several radio buttons. But what is the need of this association of radio buttons? Why do we need to associate them together? Let us see. Basically, the button group takes care of unselecting the previously selected button when the user selects another button in the group. As you know, in the beginning, we were studying about why radio buttons are used, why are we going to use them in our form. So we studied that we want to select only one input from the user at a time. Means either the user have to select male or female, means the user cannot select both of them at the same time, and that is why we have used the radio buttons option so that only one option is selected at a time and not both of them. So now when we have added both of the radio buttons, how will they function together? Means if one of them is selected and the user selects the another one, then how will this get deselected? So for this purpose, for deselecting the previously selected when another option is selected, so for this purpose we use the button group, because it is the button group which is responsible for unselecting the previously selected radio button. Okay, so to associate the two radio buttons to each other, link both the radio buttons with a button group. Means if we have to associate the two radio buttons to each other, means we want that if one of them is selected, then the other one should get automatically unselected. So for this purpose we have to associate them, and for associating, what we have to do, we have to link both of them, male and female, these two radio buttons have to be linked with the button group, and that too the same button group. For each group of radio buttons, we need to create a button group instance and add each radio button to it. Means whichever group of radio buttons we are having, here we are having this group in which we are having two radio buttons. And in whichever example you are going to use the group of radio buttons, in that you need to create a button group instance. Means you need to add this button group component also, and after it you have to add each radio button to it, and this is how you will be associating these radio buttons to each other and linking them to the button group. It is necessary, so it is not optional for you. Means it is not up to you that if you want to use it or not, you have to use it. It is compulsory, it is necessary. Why? Because if you are using a group of radio buttons and you are not using the button group property or the button group component, then what will happen, the user will be able to select both of the radio buttons or all of the radio buttons that are available in the group at the same time. But we are using radio buttons so that only one can be selected at a time. So that is why we need to add the button group feature or the button group property so that only one radio button can be selected at a time. So that is why we can say that it is necessary to associate all the radio buttons in a group to one button group. So we have understood that why do we need to associate these buttons to the same button group. Now we are going to understand how to do this. So to associate, what you have to do, first of all, you will go to the first radio button, you will right click on it, and then you will select the properties option, or you can directly go to the properties window for the first radio button. Here you will select the button group property, and after it you can see in the down arrow there is option button group 1. You have to select it. Now what will happen after selecting this? The first radio button will be linked to the button group 1. So this is how we are going to link the radio button to the button group. This is the radio button and this is the property that we are going to link. The similar procedure is to be repeated with the second radio button. You have to right click on the second radio button and you will choose the properties option. Afterwards, in the properties window, you have to select the button group option and then button group 1. So this is how you will be linking the two radio buttons to the same button group. After both the radio buttons have been associated together, clicking on any one of them will show an association between them, informing us that they belong to a group. This means that after we have done this, means after we have linked both of the radio buttons with the same button group, then what has happened? Both radio buttons have been added to a group and they have been associated together. Means whenever the user will be selecting one of them, then the other one will get automatically deselected. Why? Because they are in a group, they are associated together. Now next step is add one more text field, non-editable text field, to display the name along with the title. As I told that the second text field will be non-editable because it is going to display the output which will not be edited by the user. So that is why we will set the editable property to non-editable, means we will uncheck it. And then double click on each of the two radio buttons one by one to associate them with the appropriate code. We also have to do the coding part. So where the coding has to be done, you have to double click on the two radio buttons one by one. First of all, click on first radio button so that you are taken to the coding of it. Now we have to do some coding also. So let us see the coding part of this form. When we double click on the JRadio button 1, then we are taken to the coding part. Here we have added this line as the coding of JRadio button 1. We have used two methods here. First is setText method and second is getText method. Why have we used it? Because first of all, in JText field 2, it is the field text field in which we want to display the output. So we want to display something. That is why we are using the setText method with it. And in JText field 1, we want to accept the input from the user. So that is why we have used the getText method with it. And also, as I just told in the beginning, that we want to concatenate the name that has been given by the user as the input. We want to concatenate it with the title. So here, by this plus symbol, we are basically concatenating the two strings. And first of all, here we have written Mr. Why have we written it? Because JRadio button 1, as you can remember, its display text was male. So whichever user is male will click on it, he will want that the title should be Mr. So that is why we have used Mr. here, and after it the name of the user will be taken from JText field 1. Similarly is the coding for JRadio button 2. When you will double click on it, you will be taken to the coding part and then you can add this line of coding. The only change between these two is that here we have used miss. Why? Because you can remember the display text of JRadio button 2 was female. So whichever user is female will click on it and she will want that Miss title should be displayed with my name. So that is why we have used Miss here, and after it the name of the user will be taken from JText field 1. Now as we have finished with the coding and the designing of the form, so now it's time to see the output. Let us see. Here is the output. Here I have entered the name in the first text field, Akshita Yadav. After it, I have selected the radio button female. And when I have selected it, you can see what is the display text or the display message that is displayed in the second text field. It is Miss Akshita Yadav. Now, why is it so? Because I have selected the radio button female and the coding for it was including Miss as the first string. So that is why it is added before the name Akshita Yadav, because here the user has selected female. If here was another name of a male and the user would have selected male, then here Mr. would be displayed before the name of that user. So this is how radio buttons function, and we learned all the coding. I hope you understood everything very well. Thank you. That was all for today. If you still have any doubt regarding any of the topics that we have studied, you can ask me on the Telegram app. The link of the Telegram channel is given on the About section of the channel. We'll meet you soon in the next video. Till then, bye bye.